Welcome back to the Revealed Report. I am your host, John Wilson. I'm glad that you decided to come back and join me on the Revealed Radio Network. Well, it is day 23 of the government shutdown, and it seems like there's still no end in sight. And we find out today from Democrat Representative Kathleen Clark, she begins to talk about how we're really concerned about those that will not be receiving a paycheck. We really take those concerns seriously, but we need to use this for leverage. And that's exactly how the radical left thinks about human lives. They think that they can use the problems that people face, the calamity, the chaos, as leverage to try to use it against the GOP, against Donald Trump, to get the GOP to bend the knee. And that's what they always do. And most of the time it works because most of the time the Republican side of the aisle doesn't have a spine and cowardice and doesn't like the bad PR, and the left looks like they are playing the good guy and always demonizes us on the right as being incompassionate, uncompassionate, inconsiderate, non-loving, non-caring, and we're just everything under the sun. And they begin to redefine language and call us whatever they want. And for a long time, people bought into it because the radical left controlled the media. But most people are turning away from the media because they lied to people for too long. A lot of people aren't tuning into CNN and MSNBC and ABC and all of these networks anymore. And a lot of independent media outlets are rising up, which I believe actually is an indicator that maybe one day we will be out of the two-party de facto system of the right and left. And maybe we will have a day where we get more voices, that maybe somebody represents the collective whole of America a little bit better. And I know that there's risk in that, but I wonder what the dynamics of America is going to be over the next 5 to 10 years. That's if the radical left doesn't get back into it and shipwreck the whole thing. And so I think we're living in a very unique day and hour that a lot of people are turning away from mainstream media because the mainstream media broke the trust of Americans. And so a lot of people are turning into independent outlets, and they're looking for people that more resemble the principles and values they have. And now truth is being exploited in a greater way. Now, I know there's dangers in technology, just like AI, social media, and all of that. But I do believe that social media and YouTube and that is the printing press of our day. I believe during the time of the Dark Ages was broken by the printing press, and there was good things that happened. There was bad things that happened. On one hand, Marxist ideology and humanistic ideology and Darwin's theories of evolution began to spread forth, and it began to pollute the minds of many people. Vladimir Lenin was able to use all kinds of pen names and push socialistic ideologies that began to hurt Russia dramatically. But at the same time, it also put Bibles in people's hands. And so I believe that the printing press allowed people to battle out their ideas to see which ideas were going to win, and the ideas that won that was what was going to shape the society, the culture, the education, and so forth. And I believe that evil tends to utilize these things a lot of times more than what we want to utilize these things. Some people will say that a lie can get around the world before truth has time to put its pants on. And I believe that's because we let it. And now with social media, the radical left was controlling a lot of it. But now independent outlets are rising up and beginning to expose things. And so it's a little harder to mind control the people when now we're battling it out. And a lot of people are turning towards conservative outlets and media because they don't want the circus show anymore. And yet, and all of this, though, the radical left will use anything to exploit, to push their agenda, even at the expense of human lives. And we find that Democrat Representative Kathleen Clark makes that very plain. It's the old saying, never let a crisis go to waste. So she's saying, oh yeah, on one hand, she's saying, oh yeah, we care about the hurting people. We care about the fact they're not getting a paycheck. We care about the fact that they might not be able to put food on the table and so on and so forth. But this is the only time we can use this as leverage against Trump and the GOP. She used the word leverage. She didn't say against Trump and the GOP, but that's the implication there. And this is why I always tell you, even though the radical left will say that they're the humane ones that really care about the people and they're out for the people's good, no, they're out for using anything to push their agenda and their narrative. And they don't mind heating things up in the street with lawlessness to be able to push that agenda. They don't mind the government being shut down and people being hurting because they want to cause outrage, and they want to win in the PR to turn that outrage against Trump, against Mike Johnson, against the GOP, against anybody that's a Trump supporter, and say, you're the one that caused the government shutdown. And we're not the one. The right is not the ones that's causing the government shutdown. The right is trying to tell the radical left, no more. You're not going to commit extortion on taxpayer dollars anymore. You're not going to tax the people to death and redistribute their wealth and cause trillions of dollars of debt that we're selling the next generations to come up the river without any paddles to get back. We're not going to enslave the generations to come. It was the founders of our nation. It was John Adams that specifically, he did not. John Adams and Benjamin Franklin most certainly knew that debt is slavery, and generations will be enslaved to that. And when you have a debt that you always have to service, it does not allow you to thrive as a free nation. And as a matter of fact, in today, in global trade, it's very dangerous, because when we lose the trust of the people into our system, and the US dollar loses its strong value into world currency. And we even see that China and Russia and Saudi Arabia and Iran and them, they are trying to come together to get away from the US dollar and to try to come up with some other type of system that will begin to be the superpower dollar. And so we, at the same time, while they're trying to do that, they're trying to win the AI race. And I believe that the digital currency of China will be connected to AI, and they're trying to get away from America being the superpower of the world and our money being the world currency. And the radical left, though, they will use every crisis to push their narrative and their agenda. They'll begin to spill out lies about the George Floyd death, and they'll hide the first tape. Keith Ellis would come out and say it's too shocking for the general public to see it, when it's George Floyd saying, "I can't breathe," even before he was laid on the ground. They'll throw fuel on lies, and they'll begin to stoke the flames of that, and they'll create crisis, and they'll use the COVID-19. They'll use any crisis they can find. And now with people not getting paychecks, they'll use that, and they'll play the PR game to try to turn the hearts of Americans against President Trump and against the GOP. When President Trump and the GOP is trying to say, look, we don't want you to waste trillions of dollars in a supposedly affordable health care. And who knew that affordable health care would actually be more expensive and less efficient? And we most certainly don't want you to spend trillions of dollars on people that are not even citizens, while we have inflation that is causing people to drown in debt, that are trying just to survive paycheck to paycheck. And we're not even taking good care of our veterans at times. And yet we're going to spend trillions of dollars to give health care to illegals. And they're saying, no, we can't do that. We cannot sell the future generations out just to have some socialistic styled healthcare and even give it to people that are not even citizens of our nation. And so the radical left, I believe, is losing grip on this. And I think that President Trump has really nuked their whole idea of being able to control the people, because President Trump was one of the first people that would use Twitter, now called X. And the reason why they banned him, and the reason why they wanted to use January 6th, the greatest insurrection in all of American history. The reason why they pushed that is because they wanted to ban him off social media, because he was making a great impact. He was the first president that was a white collar guy that connected with the blue collar community, because he would go out there and speak things to them every single day. And now with Truth Social and YouTube and all these things, he's getting his communication right down to the general public, which is slashing all the lies of CNN and MSNBC and all these things. And that's why their ratings are tanking. And he's exposing the fact that the radical left is trying to take advantage of every crisis. And the GOP is doing much, much better. J.D. Vance, Mike Johnson. I have never seen the Republican Party as strong as what they are right now. And I have to say, I'm proud of them for being strong for once, because I'm used to the Republican Party being limp-wristed and weak. And much of that was because they didn't control the media. But now there's a shift in the media world, and now they're being able to stand with more boldness, and they're saying, no more. We are not going to have, we have already broke the law of economy as a nation. We are riding by the grace of God, because right now it is a greater debt to service the debt than even national defense. That's a problem. There are nations and countries in history that has crumbled and collapsed because of that. It weakens a nation until eventually they lose their power and other ones rise up to power. And so Trump understands this. Trump is actually fighting. We talk about 5D, 3D chess and whatever. He's like fighting on 35D chess, because he's trying to win the AI race. He's trying to make sure that we're not being ripped off on foreign and world trade. He's trying to make sure that fentanyl's not pouring across our border, that drug cartels and gangs aren't coming into our country. He's trying to crack down on the lawlessness in our cities, and he's trying to get rid of Antifa from being able to reap havoc inside of our cities. I mean, he is fighting on so many fronts, and it's the first time President Trump did something to the Republicans that's never been done before. And that's why they hate him so much. Reagan did good at this too, but Trump's done it at a level that nobody has ever done this before. He has really given them a backbone, especially now that we don't have the turtle, Mitch McConnell, there. They have a backbone, and they're really standing up against the radical left for one of the first time ever in my lifetime, because now they're letting the government stay shut down, and they're trying to make the left bend their knee rather than the left making the right bend their knee. And Trump will go out there and blast them. I mean, he's got the media around him all the time. One of the smartest things he ever done. He's bringing them on he's bringing them on Air Force One. He's putting them right on the White House lawn. He is really speaking right to them and cutting right through the lies. And that's why they are absolutely losing their mind in Trump derangement syndrome, because they're not used to somebody not playing by their rules. They're used to creating the narrative, creating the rules, and everybody plays by their rules. And here he comes and throws a bomb right on their rules. And as a matter of fact, he didn't just do this with the radical left. He also did this with the Republican GOP. Anybody remember 2016 when he was debating against Jeb Bush and even little Marco before he became Big Marco, and Senator Ted Cruz? And remember when he was sitting there and he was being booed, and he said, the reason I'm being booed is because these are all their donors, and we couldn't get our people in here because they don't let anybody come in here but the donors. I mean, he was nuking the whole system and calling everything out as it should be called out. He wasn't playing by their rules, and that's why he's so effective. And now you see that there's others like little Marco's Big Marco playing by the rule book of Trump, not the rule book of the left and the reprobate GOP. And you have JD Vance. That's a voice that's much, much different than any time past. Now, I'll say this about JD Vance. I absolutely love JD Vance. I think he's a great vice president. I think he's doing a wonderful job. I really hope that he's as strong at defending Israel as Trump is. I really do. I'm not really sold one way or another yet. I have a little bit of level of questioning with that, especially with the way he even presented his comments about, the two people hating each other, and they're trying to bring peace to Gaza, and one side's a little more safe and the other one's like radically not safe. The way he was packaging that, I do have some questions on how pro-Israel maybe he is. Now, I have less concerns with Marco Rubio. And right now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know who I would rather support to become the next president of the United States, J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio. Right now, there are a lot of things I really like about Marco Rubio. But getting back to the whole idea of the crisis, the radical left, they use crisis. That's one of their strong things that they use. They want to use crisis to begin to weaken the other side. They use COVID-19. They'll use financial crisis. They'll use George Floyd's death. They'll use anything. They'll use the government shutdown and people being financially hurt. Now, I'll be honest with you. The reason why I don't mind the government shutdown at this moment is because I believe we have too large of a federal government. I don't think it was intended for us to get nervous because the federal government might shut down for a little while, which we know they don't completely shut down. We still have a military. They're still conducting business and all of these things. So it's not completely shut down. But I don't believe it was ever intended to be this big of a federal government. They did not want this big of a federal government. So I've been saying from the very outset that President Trump needs to figure out what are the essential services that the federal government needs to provide and shave off all the fat and get down to those bare necessities, and then go out and show the general public how much tax dollars are being saved. And then, honestly, if he wanted to play the left game, he could probably buy the votes by giving us some kind of rebate. Now, I don't want the rebate. Just get the debt down. But I understand if you're going to play the political game, he could play it back with the radical left, and he could probably buy some votes by giving out those handouts. Now, I'm not a big fan of that, but I would understand why he would be tempted to play that political game to help secure the next election. To say there's no political games involved would be naive. There is most certainly that. So I think Democrat Representative Kathleen Clark is saying the secret things out loud, that they're wanting to use this as leverage against the GOP so that they can try to get people to buy into their idea, and we can just waste more trillions of dollars, and we can crush the future of our nation by crushing our economy and eventually helping China become the superpower of the world with a different kind of currency because nobody trusts us in our currency anymore. Also, there's Democratic Representative Robert Garcia, who is now there's a government tracking on ICE agents. Now, watch this. The government is shut down. Instead of trying to figure out how to get the government reopened again, they're more wanting to use government officials for trying to create a system of tracking ICE movement. Why do you think they want to do that? They have no problem with ICE agents being hurt. They have no problem with ICE agents being harmed. They have no problem with violence in the streets. And what they do is then they begin to make it look like these are the 1938 brown shirts. These are the Nazis that are just running through our cities, and they're picking up everybody that is non-white, and they're throwing them into their vehicles and just hauling them off. And I would imagine they say that they probably think that Trump is having them take them to a gas chamber somewhere. This is how radically insane they have become. They are absolutely losing their ever-loving mind on these things. This is how insane that they have become with these things. And now even in California, in LA, now they're giving plaques to a man that is being, I had it in my morning report, but this person is fighting against ICE agents, rammed his vehicle into an ICE agent, tried to flee from the scene, and he was even involved in violent attacks against the ICE agent. And what does the LA city do? Los Angeles do? They give him a plaque. They give him an honorary reward for fighting against illegal ICE agents. It's not illegal ICE agents. The ICE agents are trying to enforce the legal laws because you have to be a United States citizen to be in our country. They're breaking the law from the very outset, and they're trying to enforce law, federal law, and yet they're the ones that have become the criminals. The radical left makes the bad guys the good guys and the good guys the bad guys. And what the radical left does to try to pull on people's emotions is they'll go find some unique scenario. There's always going to be unique scenarios. There's always going to be a bad situation. And they'll find that unique bad situation to pull on people's emotions. So then they begin to allow their emotional appeal to begin to lower their standards and begin to say, okay, we need to do away with these laws. And then when we do away with these laws and we all have open borders, then you have brutal attack on our United States citizens. We have fentanyl pouring over. We have gangs pouring over. We have MS-13 pouring over. We have terrorists that want to pour over. And how do they do that? Because the radical left took one situation that is a genuine bad situation to pull on the empathy and the sympathy of people to get them to lower our standards. And so I understand there's always going to be bad situations, but you can't nuke the whole system and structure over these bad situations. You must have law and order, and you must have structure to have a civilized, working, functioning society. And so, yes, we can mourn over the bad situations, but we can't destroy the whole system because we might be able to pick out some bad scenarios and bad situations. There will always be that. But that doesn't justify destroying the whole system. And then all of a sudden, we all lose our ability to live the American dream. We all lose our ability to have a thriving society. So now they're making the criminals good guys and the good guys criminals. And it's kind of like the Bible. They'll call light darkness, darkness light, good evil, evil good, bitter sweet, and sweet bitter. I mean, it's the play out of the biblical principles right before our very eyes. But the problem is the radical left doesn't believe in any of that because they really don't believe in the Bible by large. And they just pull on the emotions of gullible Christians that want to go along with it when really they're going to destroy their Christian principles in the end anyways. And this is the work of the radical left. So now they're using the government to try to track down ICE agents. You know why? Because they don't have a problem with ICE agents getting injured, because they don't mind causing chaos in the streets. They don't mind using calamity. They don't mind using it as leverage to try to push their ideologies into the general public so we buy into it and we crush our society, to uproot the West, to destroy America. Over and over again, it comes down to really one thing. It's not even a left or right thing. It's a pro-America, pro-Bible or not. It's good and evil. And it's, are we going to stand for the principles of God's word, America's founding, and are we going to support the only other democratic society and ally over in the Middle East, Israel? Are we going to side with Hamas and the radical leftists that have the same agenda to uproot the system? So during the government shutdown, instead of trying to figure out how to open up the government, no, they would rather spend more time trying to track down ICE agents and hopefully get them hurt. Now, really, the biggest thing I want to get to in today's revealed report is I call her Jehadi-Candy Owens and her cult following, because it's getting even more crazy now. So I'll give you what she said today, and we'll kind of go back and we'll lead up to where we're at, because I think it's a dark pollution that's taking place in the minds of many. And so there's a report from AlabamaAL.com, and it is conservative influencers unhinged Charlie Kirk conspiracy theory outrages MAGA. Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. And for right reasons. There is times to be genuinely outraged. There is proper outrage at times. Now, we handle it different than the radical left. So let me quote the conservative influencer Candace Owens, Jehadi-Candy, strongly suggested that the federal government played a role in Charlie Kirk's assassination, fueling anger from several MAGA activists, one of whom called Owens absolutely unhinged. While Owens did not specifically mention President Donald Trump, she said she lost faith in him over Kirk's assassination. She says, I quote, "We just know. We just know that he was truly betrayed in one of the most egregious ways that I think I've ever seen," end quote, Owens said in a clip spread on social media Wednesday night. She also said, "It has made me lose faith in politics, has made me lose faith in Trump, and my heart aches for the fact he gave so much of his life to Trump and to politics, and they just were like, nope, that is it. And he serves us or doesn't serve us, and we want to move on. And so here's a holiday," Owen said. Well, Trump did not create a federal holiday for Kirk. The president declared October 14th, Kirk's birthday, a national day of remembrance. She also went on to say, bro, what is with them giving people a holiday after they kill them? Why is that a thing? Like on Martin Luther King. What about this holiday? What about this boulevard? She said. While claiming that American streets will eventually be renamed for Kirk, the conservative influencers said similar honors were already given in Israel. Owens previously suggested Israel and powerful pro-Israel advocates played a role in Kirk's slaying. I quote, "As soon as they give you a boulevard and a holiday, they definitely have killed you. That is no question. They killed you," she said. I quote, "That's their signature thing. That's what they do. It's the Fed signature. And it's never on the nice side of town either," Owens continued. Like Charlie Kirk Boulevard is not going to be on the nice side of town. Owens' latest comments were condemned by leading MAGA activists. Candace Owens is now implying that President Trump murdered Charlie Kirk absolutely unhinged, tweeted Laura Loomer. Owens is facing a defamation lawsuit from French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte Macron after Owens claimed Brigitte Macron is a man. And so what you see here is now this is the grift of Candace Owens. She doesn't outright say anything. She's learned the system pretty well. For the most part, she does make some mistakes in it. But what she has learned is if she doesn't outright say it, she can insinuate it. And the moment that you come out and you claim that she said it, she's going to back up and say, I never said that. That's the grift, and that's the game of how she operates and plays this. And then when she has a lot of people come out against her, then her grift game is, well, then it must be true, because otherwise they would not be coming out against me. If it wasn't true, then they would just let it go. You only fight things if it's true. And so that's her other grift. That's the thing that she claims. And she pulls on a lot of people. She's got 5 million plus followers that are now just saying, yes, Master Candace Owens, we believe you and we trust you only. And so now you see that she is insinuating that Trump had something to do with it and the feds had something to do with it. If she didn't mean that, she really had a slip of the tongue. Now, I will say there are times when you're going on air, especially live every day, that you're going to have slips of the tongue, but somebody's going to cut that out and somebody's going to do that. I mean, they've done it with me already. That's going to happen. There's nobody that's perfect in their communications all the time. That's something that's going to happen. So if it was a slip of the tongue, Okay, that's fine. It was a bad slip of the tongue, but she most certainly was insinuating the feds. And if she was not insinuating that Trump was involved in it, she was insinuating that Trump has betrayed Charlie Kirk, because they're not really going after the real person that killed Charlie Kirk, because it cannot be the assassin that they arrested. You know, the one that was defending the transgender movement, and the one that was dating a guy that was claiming that was transing to be a girl and was part of the furry club. I mean, and if you go back to the scene, which I don't suggest to do, the question was about transgenderism. All the question was about transgenderism, and it was also about the assassinations and the violence of the transgenders against others. And that was the moment that he got shot. Now, what I will say is I have questioned whether more people are involved than just the one shooter. I have questioned that. What I never questioned is whether Israel is involved, whether Trump is involved, whether the feds themselves is actually involved, whether Turning Point USA turned their back on Charlie Kirk. I never questioned any of that. I think it's completely reasonable to question whether or not this was more of a coordinated effort. Was there other people that was helping that assassin? But I do believe that that assassin was the assassin. And I believe the thing that Candace Owens was really running risk of is she's tampering with evidence. She's making it harder for them to nail down the case by doing everything she's doing. And she's grabbing just random clips of social media and then beginning to concoct and create stories, even blaming the spiritual mentor of Charlie Kirk. And her followers were even blaming the spiritual mentor of Charlie Kirk, who was just adjusting his hat as if he was giving signals like a baseball game, and that he was actually involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And this was a man that was deeply, deeply sorrowed and hurt and grieved over the death of his friend, who he was a spiritual advisor to. And they were just picking this out. And then there was another man that they claim was involved because he began to take the very SD card out of the camera because he was wanting to hand it over to the feds. He was wanting to hand it over to those that was investigating the crime scene. He did not want the crowd to go and get it, because even though he was shook up and he was communicating with people on the phone and they were talking together and he was shook up, he realized that people were rushing and taking the hats, Charlie Kirk's hats, and then people were taking things. He did not want somebody taking the camera. And so he took the SD card out to secure that so that it can be investigated. But you find that Candy Owens, she began to say that we can't trust the feds, that we can't trust them, that this could be an inside hit job. You should have never gave them the film. You should have went in rebellion against the feds, and you should have gave the very SD card, the tape and the film of that to Candace Owens so she can do a private investigation. And then she went out before her crowd and asked for funding, asked for money so that she can have the money to investigate. And most of it was just going out on social media, taking random clips and putting it all together like some crazy tin hat conspiracy theorist on a board somewhere, pinning everything together and drawing lines that don't make any sense. And so what you find is then she began to tell the story that Israel was involved, that Turning Point USA began to turn their back on Charlie Kirk and was involved in it, even to the point that there was insinuation that Erica Kirk was involved in the assassination of her own husband. And now she is saying that the moment that they name a boulevard after you and give you a national holiday, that is a sure deal. That is the nail in the coffin. That is the final evidence that they killed you. Now, Trump is the one that's recognizing it as a national day of remembrance, and you're saying that. Are you insinuating that Trump was involved in it? Or are you just insinuating that Trump turned his back on Charlie Kirk because he's not investigating it more? Because really what you want him to do is somehow say Israel was involved and somebody in Turning Point USA was involved. Now, the dangerous thing of this is the people that she was insinuating that was involved in it now has people that was threatening their well-being and their life because they love Charlie Kirk, and now they thought they were involved in it. So now they're threatening them. And this is a very dangerous thing. You can't just go out on air and just insinuate anything you want. And then she piecemeals things together and makes it as if it's solid evidence. And I don't know how she has any friends, to be honest with you. If you're a friend of Candy Owens, I wouldn't be giving her any text messages, because eventually she's going to air out everything on one of her podcasts, because she's more loyal to pushing her narrative for clickbait and following than she is to her friends. And she acts like she's trying to defend Charlie Kirk, her dear friend, which, by the way, I don't understand what happened. Why was she not at Turning Point USA? The optics didn't look good. Did she step away on her own, or did they push her out? And then she wasn't even seemingly to be invited to the Charlie Kirk celebration and the celebration of life. And if she was, she wasn't going. And she said that she was going to celebrate it by getting with Kanye, Hell Hitler guy, and she's going to listen to Kanye's music, and that's how she's going to mourn the death and celebrate the death of Charlie Kirk, which makes a lot of sense, right? And she says, well, I can't go to Charlie Kirk's celebration of life. I can't go to his memory because the feds are there, and I'm talking about the feds, and I'm talking against the feds, and therefore, it may not be safe for me to go there. Well, Tucker, sorry, how's Mark Levin say it? Tucker Katarson. And I'll give Mark Levin's been on the thing about people not giving him credit. I'm going to give Mark Levin credit for his quote. Tucker Katarson, according to Mark Levin. I mean, he's been saying some radically stupid things too, but he was there, he was invited, and he spoke, and nothing happened to him. It's just a grift after grift after grift. So the question becomes, how are they able to peddle all these conspiracy theories? And how they have done it. And this is the dangerous thing, because it's the same ends as the postmodern movement. You see, the postmodern movement began to question everything to you begin to deconstruct the system altogether. And the postmodern movement is a radical leftist movement. But what has happened is now, because they have lied to us so much and they have called us conspiracy theorists when we were actually speaking the truth, such as, the Wuhan laboratory virology maybe being the very origin of COVID-19, and maybe it had nothing to do with bats. Maybe they were actually doing gain of function research, and maybe we were funding it through taxpayer dollars through unelected bureaucrats back to that Wuhan laboratory. I was questioning this at the time, and we were told that we were conspiracy theorists. People were being demonetized. I actually had a post that was being throttled down on my social media handles because of that. And, you get strikes and you have to begin to contest that. They were trying to shut us down for questioning that. You couldn't question Hunter Biden's laptop theory. You couldn't question any of that. They lied. You couldn't question the efficacy of the vaccine. You couldn't question whether it had adverse reactions. They lied one thing after another, to the point that nobody trusted them. The mainstream media lied. The government was lying. The feds were being turned against the citizens. They were using the Department of Justice and the feds against just parents that were going and trying to protest against boys going into girls' bathrooms and these things. And so when that began to happen, people began to question government altogether. And what happened is, it's like the reverse of the 1960s radical leftism, and now it's trying to migrate on the right as well. And there's a danger of falling off both sides into radicalism, both on the radical left and radical right. And so now you have Candy Owens that understood that everybody's questioning everybody, and now everything's a conspiracy theory. So they begin to take the advantage of that to push and peddle real conspiracy theories. We didn't land on the moon. I believe we landed on the moon. There's many reasons why. Maybe I'll do an episode telling you why I believe we landed on the moon. And they now she says, we have to question everything. We can't trust anything. And if they call us conspiracy theorists, then that's just the truth. And so she can peddle conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory. And the moment you say it's conspiracy theory, then what she can say, see, everybody that says it's conspiracy theory means it's just the actual truth. That's the grifting game that she plays continually. Now, the reason why people do fall into conspiracy, because I believe there is this desire for the unknown. There's this desire to go into what seems to be the unknown knowledge that's not at the surface level. And I believe some of that is connected to the fact that I believe we are spirit beings. I have not bought into the radical leftist humanistic ideology that we're just like meat puppets for our own self-satisfaction, and there's no spiritual realm to us. And so I believe that there is a deep inner desire to know something that goes beyond the natural. And I believe that gives power to the conspiracy theorists to try to push something that seems like knowledge beyond the natural. And it begins to satisfy the sensationalism of mankind. And so that's why I believe there's appeal towards that. That's why I think the UFO idea is such appealing to people. The idea of certain sites that extraterrestrial or not. There's an appeal to that. There's an appeal to that to humanity. There's a sensationalism with that. And there's this appeal to go beyond the realm of what's known into a realm of unknown so that we can somehow tap into a greater understanding. And I believe that's what makes conspiracy theories so appealing. And so on one hand, they're saying everything's conspiracy theory, even though it's true. And then there's real conspiracy theories, but they can hide behind all of these what they would call slander against them and say, see, they're calling me a conspiracy theorist. It must be true. And that's the dangerous thing of that. And Candy Owens has been very good about insinuating things without outright saying them, and then beginning to peddle actual conspiracy theories. And then when you call her out on it, she says, well, it must be true then. And she now has like 5 million plus followers that are following her, to the point that they're examining Erica Kirk's every move and examining how many tears are coming out of her eyes, and how is she conducting herself, and how is she grieving, and how is she mourning. And somehow they all must be involved, even down to the point that Candy Owens was saying that she was at her kid's private school and there was some kind of like B club that must have been involved in it. And it gets more sensational, more sensational. Now she's not behind her podcast microphone, but she is still putting out episodes. And I really wonder what's going on. Now, my concern is I actually have a genuine concern for Candy Owens. So let me show you a little bit of my compassionate side. I think there's something badly going wrong with her. I think it's going beyond just the grift. I do believe there's the need for narcissistic attention. And I do believe there's the need for having the following so she can keep her money flow coming in. But my concern is, at what point do you lie enough that you believe your own lies? And at what point does it become like Second Thessalonians chapter 2, where you believe a lie and you're damned because you had not a love for the truth? This is why I also have a concern. There's some people that say, why don't you just deal with Bible matters and not and leave the political matters alone? Because really all of it comes down to truth or falseness. It comes down to truth and deceit. And the problem is, a little bit of leaven will leaven up a lump. If you begin to let them push CRT, then they're going to begin to expand that. If you begin to let them push critical race theory, then they're going to expand that. If you let them push that America was built on evil, they're going to expand that. If you let them push humanistic ideology, they're going to expand that. If you let them deteriorate what a man is and what a woman is and what marriage is, it's not content staying there. The territory you give them, when they get that territory, they're going to try to take more territory. And eventually the end result is they'll run your churches underground. They'll silence your free speech. They'll take your guns away. They will tell you what ideas you can have and can't have. And so I say, we don't wait until they get to the doorstep of our churches and our houses. We go out there and we battle out the ideas of truth and deceit where they are right now. And we cut out that leaven and not let it permeate until it leaveneth the whole lump of our society. Because the end result, it will come after our doorstep and our children and our next generations. And so I don't believe it's God's will to sit back in silence and let them take over all the territory. I believe we need to be the voice of truth. I believe us who actually believe in Bible, believe that have the truth, the capital T truth. I believe that we should be fighting on the front lines of all truth, because I believe that we are the light of the world to reveal light in the dark world. And that means showing truth in all forms. And I believe that's the reason why we can't just sit back and let these things be spoken and not speak out as well. And so what I am seeing is there's dangerous movement on the radical left that call every one of us conspiracy theorists, but now on the right, there's also those that are becoming grifters to use that. And my concern with Candy Owens is there something spiritually, mentally going wrong with her, to the point that she's lying so much that now she is believing her whole lie? Or is it an actual game? Is it manipulation? Or now have she become living in the falseness of her lies and making it a real truth, that now it's a strong delusion that everything she looks at is in the lens of her lies? And if that's the case, honestly, while I call it out, I pray for her, because I'm concerned if that's the case, that is a very, very dangerous spiritually and emotionally place to be. And it would not be good for her well-being. And so while I call it out, I'm actually praying for her. And it grieves me because I once loved the work that she did. The calling out the Democratic plantation. Blackout, her book. I have it. It was a great book. It was great work. Now she seems to not be able to be stable anywhere. She couldn't be stable at TPUSA. She couldn't be stable at Prager. She couldn't be stable at the Daily Wire. And everybody was demonizing Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire. But I think I'm glad that Ben Shapiro did not bow, because I think over time, truth will be revealed and the mask will be blown and the cover will come off. And so I believe that it's only a matter of time that these lies are going to be exposed. And that's why here on the Revealed Report and the Revealed Radio Network, yes, there will always be the temptation to say whatever is going to give you the most clicks. But the truth of the matter is, truth wins out in the end. It begins to bear out. And in the end, it wins. Because Vladimir Lenin can lie all he wants. He's in the grave, but the truth has been marching on. Joseph Stalin can try to uproot Russia with lies, but the truth marched on and he's in the grave. And so was his powerful USSR. Mao can lie to his people, but the truth marches on while Mao's in the grave. And so I believe that we need to defend truth at all forms, in all ways. And I am concerned that there are people on the right that are following the Tucker, Mark Levin's words, Catarsons, and the Candy Owens, and they're beginning to turn their back on Israel. And there was insinuation that Israel was involved because they named a boulevard. And I don't even know if this is true or not, but Candy Owens claims that they named the boulevard in Israel after Charlie Kirk. So that means they must have killed him. They must have been involved in it. And I'm concerned of the low IQ nature of America as we continue on, that people are no longer trying to dig in and investigate on their own and find actual truth. And they're just buying into the sensationalism of either the radical left or the far crazy right. The American isolationists that are not MAGA, the anti-Israel movement that are not MAGA. And then you have Candy Owens saying that Trump is Bibi's puppet fighting Bibi's wars, and we need regime change with Bibi before we do Hamas. I mean, this is radically insane. And so I am thankful that there are many people calling it out, and we need to continue to call it out. And as a matter of fact, I have been invited, and I'll be releasing some details on this as this more comes to fruition. But I've been invited into another show to talk about this subject matter because there's a great concern. And there's questions on how does people get to this point? How do people come around to this cult-like following? What causes that? And we need to expose the dangers of that. And so I've been requested to talk about those subject matters, and I'm looking forward to that. And I'll be giving those updates as that comes more to fruition here in the soon coming days. And so I'm excited to be able to be invited to that conversation. And so I ask the people that listen to us, please be praying with me that I can articulate that well so people can really understand what's going on in our world today. Oh, by the way, there was somebody that, because I put out a clip on Zoran Mondani about him being a socialist that believes in like rent control and all of that. And he said, you don't obviously know what you're talking about because he is a pro-Islam person and he's trying to legalize prostitution and that. And I thought, I actually messaged back very kindly and I said, hey, you are absolutely right. As a matter of fact, you caught a little snarky pun along the way just for entertainment value, also, digging at it and revealing truth. But you should probably listen to some of my other episodes because one of the biggest things I'm worried about more to rent control is his pro-Israel propaganda, his pro-Hamas propaganda, his anti-Israel propaganda. Wow, I really almost messed that one up. I'm sure somebody will clip that one out and run that one around. More coffee before the Oracle podcast. His pro-Palestine, his pro-Hamas and anti-Israel propaganda. That's the biggest problem I have with Zoran Mondani. And so, but we're going to call out all of it. And so, but that exposes another thing I was wanting to talk about. The concern I have in America today is the short attention span and the lack of investigation. It seems like we just want to grab little clips, not know the whole context of anything, and then begin to cast our ideas into it. And there's not much investigation to it. And because Candace Owens could sometimes get things right every now and then, that one or even 10% or 20% or 30% of truth that she gets right becomes a mask to hide all of her hidden agenda. And people will just follow it like a cult following that all of it's right. No, there's sometimes we can say things that we could be 95% right. If we're wrong, wrong 5% of the time, we can call that out. It's okay. And we can begin to shift and align ourselves to what's true and what's right. And so I really have a concern with the low IQ appeal. There's people that are trying to appeal to the low IQ voter and just trying to play on their sensationalism. We really need to go beyond that, understand the context of things, and not just follow personalities, but really follow the truth that's being presented. And so here on the Revealed Report, that's the biggest thing we want. Yes, we do try to have some entertainment value with this, but we don't just want people to follow us because we can make fun, snarky remarks against Mom Donnie and other ones, or kill Grandma in the nursing home Cuomo. We want the people to follow what's true because truth is going to win out in the end. And so it's our desire to preserve that. And so I'm really praying that people will not follow the extremes of the radical left or the radical right. Well, that's about all the time we have because we're about ready to get into a 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the Oracle podcast. So for all of the Revealed Radio Network fans that like Bible content and especially the Book of Revelation, which I have a different kind of view of the Book of Revelation, uh, join me here momentarily. Just in a little bit, we'll jump on the Oracle podcast and we will dive into Revelation chapter 4 and we'll try to uncover the truth of God's word. Also, if you have not purchased The Final Flame and you're interested in novel mystery thrillers, you might be interested in that one. It's The Final Flame. It can be found on Amazon. If you want a signed edition, email us at revealedpublications@gmail.com and we'll give you the details on how to get a signed publications. We have been adding more podcast to the network. My two sons, they debut on Saturday. Get in the Game with Jesus podcast and the Biblical American Kids podcast. We're excited about that. The Revealed Kids Bedtime Stories book is coming out October 31st. On November 1st, there's the release of 2 more books of my own, which is A Living Sacrifice, God's Blueprint for Real Revival, and Blessed and Broke, How a Nation Lost God and Gained Debt, and How We Can Be Restored. America, I love you. We know the church will be standing for Jesus said, upon this rock, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. But that the republic hasn't been totally burned down by tomorrow. I'll see you then. God bless you.